So I'm going to do this very quickly because I think you're pretty familiar. We've had a wildfire prevention assessment district for 10 years. You pay $65 a year on your property tax. This money is pooled together. It raises about $1.7 million a year. The funds are used to reduce the fuel load on public properties. Now, if you think about wildfires, think of a little triangle. A wildfire needs three things. It needs the kind of topography that keeps the fire going. It needs that terrible Santa Ana weather, hot, dry, windy weather, and it needs fuel. And we can't do anything about the topography. We can't do anything about the weather. But the one thing we can do something about is reduce the fuel load. And that's what the Wildfire Prevention District does. It's a wildfire prevention district, and the funds are used to keep the fuel load down on public properties. So this covers the goats that you see grazing every year, the roadside clearance so that we can get off the hill and the fire trucks can get up the hill, creating fire breaks, removing dead trees, occasionally working on specific project areas like Shepherd Canyon or the North Oakland Sports Field or out of King Estates, and the free chipping program that you, as members of the Wildfire Prevention District, can take advantage of. And that's worth more than your $65 a year, because if you hire somebody to haul that stuff away, it probably costs you several $100s. This district ends in January, and fire survivors like myself and other people in the community want to continue it for another 10 years. There's a reason why it's very good to have this money coming in for 10 years. It's a steady source of money. The fact that we know that it's coming year in and year out, we can make very good decisions with that money. We can negotiate multi-year contracts, which we have done in the past, so that we get better economies of scale with those contracts. We can work with those contractors to train them to do the kind of work that we'd like them to be doing. And the fact is that we don't have to compete for that money with the general fund. And since the general fund has been hit with the terrible economy and there have been so many competing priorities, we would really have a hard time assuring that we would get this $1.7 million a year that we need to do the regular, routine fuel reduction. And it needs to be done because the grass grows every day, the trees grow every day, the shrubs grow every day. And I don't think we want to be in the position that Mount Diablo was last month when they had that terrible fire and you heard, oh, because of budget cuts, they didn't do any fuel vegetation management for 2 years. The whole thing is to prevent small fires, which we have all year round, from becoming big fires. There was a big fire on the 4th of July in Joaquin Miller Park. Fortunately, the week before, the goats who were paid by the Wildfire Prevention District were there to graze and keep the fuel low, and we didn't have that terrible wind. There was a fire on Armour Drive just a few weeks ago. There was a fire, today's Thursday, last night. A stump in Montclair Park was on fire. Thank God we have been maintaining that. And, you know, I live over in Hiller Highlands, but when you look at the Wildfire Prevention District, which goes from Berkeley down to San Leandro and along the hills, it is designed, it was formed based on maps that came from the California Department of Forestry and Fire. We are considered a high-risk area, and the highest risk area is right here in Montclair. So it's too late to think that, you know, we'll be saved when the fire is coming roaring down the hill. And as someone who's lived through a fire in 1991, and I can still feel that heat coming down the hill and smelling the smoke and knowing that I'm stuck in a traffic lane with lots of cars in front of me, watching the eucalyptus above Chabot School just burst into flame with my 9-year-old daughter in that car. I don't want anybody to have to go through that again. And it isn't just that. It's the 2 years that we spent trying to pick up the pieces of our life afterwards. And for 21 cents a day, we can avoid that. So to me, voting yes for Measure A makes common sense. It's all about prevention and keeping those small fires from becoming big fires. So.
But are you just talking about, you said public lands?
Yes.
Hold on. We'll get to the specifics.
Everything you're talking about is residential.
The park isn't residential.
Montclair, the Ascot eucalyptus trees up there, the trees that grow over my professional cohort who was killed in the fire in '91, who accidentally drove into a surrounding fire. And like you said, fires don't just sweep, they go from treetop to treetop. And they suck out all the oxygen. It's like napalm.
And in the hills, we have public properties that are interlaced among the private properties. Whether this passes or not, we are all responsible to maintain defensible space on our properties. But the city needs $1.7 million. That's what it takes to maintain Montclair Park, the areas around Joaquin Miller Park that are adjacent to private homes, North Oakland Sports Field, King Estates, the medians, Skyline. You know, you look around here, we've got public properties adjacent to private properties, and the fire doesn't care what it is. It's just looking for fuel.
Are you familiar with the Project 415 that happened in the '70s?
I'm sorry, there's a process.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd actually like to get David Mix up to now speak his side, and then we will have time for Q&A.
There's a process.
Good evening again. My name is David Mix, a native Oaklander. I've been here all my life. Actually, I was raised in here, but moved back later. So I've seen lots of changes in Oakland. I'm a little bit older than I think I am sometimes, but I am pre-war, so that really dates me, pre-World War II. So I have been around for a long time and in the city of Oakland. Ms. Piper is absolutely correct. We need to be concerned about the fires and the vulnerability up here in the hills. My problem with the tax is that it is a tax. It doesn't really address the issues that we should be concerned about. It detracts from the real hard issues. And there are real hard issues. Unfortunately, the sense most people have is that when you pay this tax, as you have in the last 10 years, and the first tax was put into place in 1993 after the initial fire, Prop 218, it was voted out, then put back in 02 and 03. But again, so many people that I've talked to feel they pay the tax and they feel they're safe. That's a safety blanket that you surround yourself or cover yourself with because you pay that tax. It doesn't do that. Paying a tax to the city of Oakland to clear brush that they are legally obligated to clear anyway, under LAD and under the general fund to maintain the public parks, that's what we pay our taxes for. That's what we pay LAD for, to clear and maintain the public parks. The city has a liability to provide a safe environment, not only police but fire. And that is their responsibility to do that. Trimming brush, clearing weeds is a good idea. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying the city shouldn't do it. The city absolutely should do it. That's their responsibility and liability. But when you look at the big picture, the real big picture, we want to save lives. With that conflagration that we had, there's not much use trying to save property, but we want to save lives. 25 people died in that fire. They died within probably the first half hour because we had no escape routes. We had no way for those people to flee those flames. If you haven't read the FEMA report, going way back, you should read that FEMA report. It's very enlightening. It's a real narrative to actually what did occur that dreadful day. Those 25 people died because they could not escape. Like I say, we are basically a stupid people. We don't do what needs to be done. We need escape routes. We should have eliminated on-street parking up in these hills years and years ago. I drove up to Grizzly Peak and up to Volomar Peak yesterday, hiked the hills up there. Parking is just atrocious. You can't get... Talk to the fire department. They were trying to get their vehicles up the hill when people were trying to get down the hill. I escaped during that fire. I was fortunate my home didn't burn like Ms. Piper's. But I saw the chaos when people were trying to get out of the hills. Again, those people died because they couldn't get out of the hills. You drive any of these streets, especially the Hill or Highland areas and the Berkeley area, it's much worse than the Montclair and out towards the zoo. That's not too bad, but it's impossible almost to get two cars on one street, let alone a fire truck and cars. And the fire department, police department will both tell you, you can't get the vehicles up the hill to fight a fire when the people are trying to escape. The apartments up there, I forgot the name of those. Those are Parkwood. Over 1,000 people were trying to get out that narrow gate within 20 minutes. It was chaos. I don't know if you saw the films, remember the films, but it was just pure chaos. It was panic trying to get out of there. And that's what we should be paying attention to. Instead of creating actual real escape routes, we hamper them by putting in speed bumps. Drive through these hills, see how many speed bumps we've put all over. The newer cars ride lower, you almost have to stop your car to pass over. 2 or 3 cars at a speed bump, somebody trying to get around one, which happened during that fire at Hiller Highlands. A slight automobile accident, somebody tried to get around it, go over up in the embankment and turned over, caused a major tie-up of traffic, blocked the whole street. We built a firehouse up in Shepherd Canyon. Why did we build a firehouse in Shepherd Canyon? That narrow 2-lane road, a down power line, a slight car accident, a fallen tree will shut that firehouse down completely. Our firehouses are extremely vulnerable. Brand new firehouse, nice new equipment, but like I say, a power line will shut it down. During the major fire, the power lines came down, I think it was on the route up by the Claremont Hotel. They wouldn't let the Berkeley people come in, the Berkeley Fire Department come in to assist until PG&E cut those lines. They say the fire jumped Highway 24. It probably did, but at the same time, those high voltage lines from the power station over here lit up and started additional fires over in Moraga. Now that's in the FEMA report. That's not something I made up. PG&E couldn't get the power shut off. When that fire erupted, we had over 3,000, 4,000 in the whole fire district. We probably have over 20,000 gas torches, high pressure gas lines. When the house catches fire, typically the meters explode. The gas shutoff valve doesn't help. Where the gas line, the feed line comes out of the ground, that's high pressure. That's higher than the pressure that actually feeds your house. Those meters exploded. They had probably 3,000 to 3,500 high-pressure gas torches feeding that fire. Corps recommends that you keep at least a half a tank in your gas for emergency escape during a conflagration, during a disaster, a half a tank of gas. Gasoline is the most flammable product we have. We probably have over 100,000 cars in this entire fire district, all with a half a tank of gas. Extremely vulnerable with the natural gas and gasoline in the cars and the rubber tires and everything else. The biggest fuel load, and there's been studies that'll tell you, is the residential infrastructure. Not the trees and bushes. They are part of it, certainly. You don't want to downsell that. They are certainly a part of it. But the fuel load, biggest fuel load, is the residential infrastructure. Okay, let me end with water. I had a long conversation yesterday and today with East Bay Mud. We have enough water available over in the Hiller Highlands area. Can't get the stats for east of Highway 13. We have enough water reserve. Well, first of all, let me say this. The East Bay Mud, and they're right, they told me today, we are not in the firefighting or fire suppression business. They are in the freshwater business. They have a problem trying to maintain water to keep it from becoming stagnant. They have to turn it over all the time. You can't have huge, I didn't realize this, you can't have huge storage tanks for a huge capacity and let it sit more than 2 or 3 days. It'll become stagnant. They have to turn it over. So they are not in the fire suppression business. So we have enough water, according to their reports, again on the Hiller Highlands side, on the north side of Highway 24, to fight a major brush fire with one house involved, one structure combined with a major brush fire for 2 hours. That's maximum. Then we're out of water. We're out of water. And again, I don't have the stats for the other side, but that's a huge problem. Again, and that is the municipality's responsibility, not the East Bay Mud's responsibility, and they made that very clear. So,
Let's end it there.
well, I'll
We'll
thank
pick it back up.
thank you very much.
You'll have an opportunity to do that. I've certainly gotten a lot of questions. I think one of the big questions, and Susan could address this, is what is Mello-Roos and why?
What is what?
Mello-Roos, this is not a parcel assessment tax. This is now a Mello-Roos, and so if you could speak to that.
Okay, well, Mello-Roos was named for Mr. Mello and Mr. Roos, and it was a set up community facilities districts back, I think it was in the 80s or earlier than that. There are two things that are different. The current district we're in is an assessment district, like the LAD is an assessment district, and every year an engineer figures out what each property owner will get in terms of direct and indirect benefits. But it's very hard with wildfires to figure out. It's not like a stoplight where you can measure your distance of your house from the stoplight. And since this district was formed, there have been some cases in the courts that have made establishing assessment districts very, very difficult. They're very complex, they're subject to lawsuits, they're just very, very difficult. Fire survivors and other people who want to continue having a source of funds to prevent fires, because everything that Mr. Mix is saying about the fires is true, but the whole idea is to keep from having the fire in the first place. We wanted this to feel like it did before. We wanted to have a flat amount of money that showed up on your parcel tax. That's exactly what this is. Instead of $65, it's $78. But no cost of living increase, it's $78 for 10 years. The difference between an assessment district and a community's facilities district, which is what this really is, means that instead of having property owners vote for it like you did 10 years ago, it's voters, registered voters who live in the same geographic area because the district is the same. So it's registered voters who are voting on this time, and it has to have a 2/3 majority. But for all intents and purposes, from your perspective, it's the same. You still see something on your property tax each year. It's a line item on your property tax. You pay it with your property tax. And it provides the same services, the goat grazing, the roadside clearance, the free chipping program. It can only be used for this. The money cannot be used for anything else. It has not been used for anything else, contrary to what people have said. You look at the website for the city, scroll down to the bottom. The independent annual audit is there. And please come to our meetings. We have a meeting coming up next Thursday, third Thursday of the month, up at the Trudeau Center. Barbara Goldenberg has been on that committee for 6 out of 9 years and is the finance chair. And I guarantee you at least 15 minutes of every meeting, if not more, is spent on what money has been expended and how does it fit with what the committee has said it should be spent on. It's only spent on what should be, on vegetation management and wildfire prevention.
Okay, great. Do you mind waiting?
On Mello-Roos specifically, that was one of the reasons I came to this meeting.
Well, listen. Why don't you listen to David, and then after that, if there's a
it's just a question on Mello-Roos. That was a very specific question that I wanted to ask. Is that I looked it up on the internet, and there's like a cost of living maximum increase that you'll get maybe this year, 1.5%, 2%, whatever. But I understand that Mello-Roos is something that can go beyond the cost of living increases. So it can go up 4, 5, 6 more % per year. Is that true?
This is just a flat amount.
Could I speak to that, sir? Yeah.
But, I mean, that's what I read on the internet about.
Yeah, but read what the legislation says.
Well, I'm trying to look up
And you can look online, because that's the binding thing, the resolution and the legislation that sets this up. It's a flat amount of money.
Mello-Roos is a very complex enactment. It was designed for schools initially for developers acquiring land to schools construction backed with bonds. That's initially how it was done, and the property owners voted. Usually it was 2 or 3 developers voted for that tax, and for the school district to build school facilities and sell bonds to back that. I understand what you're saying, and it's very tricky. Oakland is very unique in trying new and different things like pension bonds. This is the first time Mello-Roos has been used for this type of tax. It's not, the scheme isn't new, but doing it under Mello-Roos is new. The case Sue was talking about, Santa Clara County Open Space Authority, the Supreme Court of California about 6 years ago simply ruled that under the assessment district it didn't provide the benefits to each individual parcel. The city was required then to show where the benefits, the amount you pay, benefited your parcel to that amount. So the city was prohibited from doing that, again, under Prop 218 because of the Santa Clara County case, so they went to Mello-Roos as another avenue. Of course, the difference, Ms. Piper said, is the other one was an assessment district where the property owners voted. This one, the registered voters vote, whether you own the property or not, so the apartment owners vote. But it's a flat tax. They say it's unfair. Taxes, generally are unfair. We have a couple of parcels out by the zoo. They're almost 100 acres each, but they're undeveloped. So under this new scheme, as a flat tax, they pay the $39. extremely vegetated properties, they pay $39 for almost 100 acres because parcels are not defined under the law. It could be 1 square foot to 10,000 square feet. There are no parcel definitions. It's not defined. Some people with your personal property, you might be paying for parcel taxes 2-3 assessment because the way the different property came down over the years, it might have been reconfigured. You might have a little sliver of that, little part of this. You might have actually 2 or a combined lot, 2 or 3 parcels, and you might pay the tax 3 times. The major businesses like PG&E, they do what they call parcel combine. They combine those parcels as long as the parcels are contiguous. They can combine them, and then they pay 1 parcel tax for 1 complete contiguous parcel. So if you have parcels that are contiguous, if you have a house that's built on 2 lots, they're contiguous, so you combine them and you only pay 1 parcel tax. If it's Oakland's parcel tax, anybody else's, it's 1 parcel tax. So under Mello-Roos, it's a brand new scheme. When Oakland passed the ordinance, they passed the ordinance. The council has the full authority under law to form a Mello-Roos district like a business benefit district, which they have several throughout Oakland. They formed that district back in June or July. Initially, that was the initial step to form a Mello-Roos benefit district. The tax that we're looking at to pay, or that you're voting on, is just the financial end of that, to pay the tax to do what they want to do under Mello-Roos. But Mello-Roos is now in place. It became a district back when the council approved it in June or July. So we are now under Mello-Roos district. Now under that scenario, the WAD, or whatever, the wildfire prevention, whatever they want to do, that may continue. They can do whatever they like. The city has authority to continue under that Mello-Roos district to do whatever they want to do. But without the tax being voted for, with the 2/3, they don't have the financing. But that doesn't mean they don't have the financing. They can finance that district out of the general fund. They can continue goat grazing. They continue to fulfill their obligation on maintaining public property out of the general fund or out of LAD, as they have for years and years and years. That is the city's option. They can fund the district however they wish and do whatever they like under that district. But the district is formed and those benefits are outlined. So all you're voting on really is whether or not to pay that money to help finance. I say help finance because that's all you're doing is just giving the city a little bit of a boost. But your question, I hear what you're saying, what else can they put under that Mello-Roos district? Once you form a district, much like the business improvement districts, school districts, everything else under California laws, this is a district formed under Mello-Roos. Can they now put in police protection, put in ABC, put in whatever under that district? I believe, and it hasn't been tested, it has been to the courts, I believe, yes, they can. The district is in place, and the council, by a simple vote by the council, they can provide other benefits to the people of Oakland in that district, so it's limited to this district, under that Mello-Roos district. It's a benefit district, so it's in place, and they can provide whatever benefits they like. What you get down to is how you pay for the benefits. If they provide extra police service, how are they going to pay for it? This fire prevention, how are they going to pay for it? So that's where we're talking about the money. The district's in place. Can they extend it and provide other services? Yes, they can legally, I believe. But can they pay for it without a vote? No.
I see a yes and no. I guess because
You
what
got
I'm
it?
concerned with is I don't want to see another, was it Measure Y, where everything goes to Desley Brooks' little pet programs?
It can't. First of all,
I
if you go to either keepoaklandfiresafe.org or to the Wildfire Prevention District site, but ours is probably easier to navigate, the actual resolution that established this, that's what established it. It is called the Community Facilities Benefit District, Wildfire District, and it only can do what it says it's going to do, which is listed in the ballot. It can't be used for anything else without the voters changing it. So that's, you may believe that, but that's what it is. It can only be used for these things.
Well, let me say this real quickly. In your ballot pamphlet, by law, the actual resolution, the ordinance is printed in the ballot material. That is what you vote on. That is the law. When a city, a municipality, a charter city such as Oakland, when they pass something like this, they enact an ordinance. That ordinance is in your ballot material. regardless what I might say or Ms. Piper might say, read that material. I think it's lengthy, it's a little confusing. I would read it 2 or 3 times. I think it kind of answers your question, because if I might throw this out lastly, it's also ambiguous. So what it can do or can't do, like Measure Y, when they sued for Measure Y, the court said, yeah, no, maybe. Went to the appellate court, they said, yeah, no, maybe. Kick it back down to the other court. They're still wrestling with that. Read that language, you've got it. It's ambiguous, it's confusing. Shame on me, but I think it was designed that way.
No.
And I think you should look at the past history of the last one for 10 years. Where has that money gone?
And Measure Y.
I'm not questioning that one at all.
Yeah, but this is basically to continue. No, it's only the
I have
mechanism.
2 properties, I get 1 vote. He has 0 properties, he gets a vote. That doesn't seem right.
It's the mechanism of
Sorry.
how it was set up to do exactly the same thing. And the reality is, you know, we'd love the city to do all sorts of things, but they're competing priorities, and
No,
you
I
know,
understand
we
that, but
wouldn't get this done.
some of this is just vague enough that, you know, like, oh, the people that work on this district, I'm reading right over here, proportionate amount of salaries and benefits of city employees whose duties are related to administration of CFD, fees and administrator, other consultants and legal counsel. Okay, well, that's vague enough that how many FTE are we talking
1.
about? How many?
1 FTE we've had for 10 years, we will have 1 FTE for another 10 years.
Possibly comprising more than 1 person.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, if you're talking about one, I'm going to talk about 1 full-time equivalent person,
Right,
whether it's
right.
2 half-time people or whatever.
But the way it's written, as I understand it, and I haven't committed it to memory, and the way the previous one was administered,
Yeah.
was that the only salary positions that could be funded would be people that were providing activities that are specified in the I'm going to call it the act, but
Yeah.
Okay,
you know,
right,
so-
yeah.
It is an act. Yes.
so it can't be that the fire chief comes along and says, you know, I need you guys to pay to keep a lieutenant in Fire Station 24. They cannot rate it for normal fire department activities.
You can't say I need to go talk to a lawyer.
Pardon?
You can't say I need to go talk to a lawyer. It just says legal fees. Doesn't
Legal
say-
fees.
Doesn't say a lawyer,
Yeah.
it says legal.
Right.
Well, that could be a lot of money.
That could be a lot of money.
It could be. And if you don't want that to happen, then come to the meetings. And when people say, oh, well, we should do this activity, let's consult the legal department and make sure it's okay, stand up and say no, which is what I've done for 6.5 years.
The only thing that really matters is what is in the proposition. Again, the lady is holding it. The ordinance that is printed in the ballot measure, that is legal and binding. If it goes to court, that's what the judge is going to look at. That's what the lawyers are going to argue, the language that is in there. We can all read it, get different interpretations, go into meetings, whatever. Like Measure Y is a prime example of how things changed over the years, depending on how people feel. It's in the language. It also says this cannot duplicate services that are already presently being provided. They're already presently providing those services, but yet this is to continue those services that it says it cannot do. It also says that they're going to perform an EIR, which they're not going to perform an EIR. Ralph, Mr. Camps was going to speak to that, because they filed a notice of determination, which makes them completely and totally exempt. There is no way in Hades they are going to spend money on an EIR. That is also, please, let me finish really quick. That is also in there. The language which the city says makes themselves exempt. It notes the actual government codes in the ballot measure. It's in that ordinance. The city declares in that ordinance that they are exempt from doing an EIR. They filed the notice with the county to make themselves exempt. Once they filed that notice, it was not protested. That's the end of it.
Okay, but I have to clarify that, because that particular thing has to do with setting up the district. The city must do an environmental impact report if it's going to be using herbicides, which is something that is a standard practice for when you cut down eucalyptus trees, which tend to grow lots of things. We cannot do that without changing the city's integrated pest management plan. And in order to do that, we have to do an environmental impact report. And the city is on record as being committed to doing that and moving forward with what's known as CEQA, which is the California version of it. But that's different than what's in there. You had your turn, let me at least have mine.
I don't want to talk over you, but I was printed in the Montclarian as saying, that is so much unadulterated bull. And I'll say it again. That is unadulterated bull.
I'm trying to explain that
I
that
don't want to be
particular
rude.
thing.
I'm so sick and tired of the city saying things, or representatives from the city, that just absolutely are not true.
Okay, David.
Read the ballot measure.
First of all, I am representing myself. I did work for the city. I've been retired for over a year. So I'm here not as a city representative, but as somebody who lived through a fire and does not want anyone else to do it again. Again, the only thing about having this district is exempt from an EIR because it was dealing with setting up the district. In terms of moving forward with processes that require environmental review, the city is obligated to go through that. There is a letter from the city manager, city administrator, to actually the Sierra Club stating that the city is committed to moving forward with CEQA. And so that's a moot issue. It has to be done.
Come on up, Ralph.
I gotta say, on April 5th,
Wait,
2000
announce, can you just say what your title is so people know?
My name is
where
Ralph
you're coming
Cans. I'm a former board member of the Friends of Sausal Creek. I'm a longtime environmental activist. I've got to say, on April 5th, 2005, the City Council passed a resolution to amend the city's integrated pest management plan to allow for the use of herbicides, a limited use of herbicides for things like painting stumps on eucalyptus trees. That same resolution provided for the preparation of a long-term management plan for the wildfire district and environmental review for both those programs. That was in 2005. And we've been told since that time, oh yeah, it'll happen, it'll happen, it'll happen. Yet this resolution exempts the whole program from environmental review. Yes, it does, Sue.
No, it does not.
In the first two paragraphs, it exempts the whole thing. And we have an 8.5 years of broken promises to do an IPM plan, which would save the city money because it would reduce fuel management the cost of fuel management on a long-term basis. Excuse me?
What's an IPM?
IPM, Integrated Pest Management Plan, which covers both herbicides, rodenticides, all those types of chemicals that are used for controlling things. And the city has very strict requirements and limitations on the use, and we were looking to get simply a exemption just for this very limited use. We still don't have that tool because after 8.5 years, the city has still not come through. So for those of us who've been waiting for that, it feels like more broken promises. And you know, if you wanted to have this in place, it would already be in place. There would already be environmental review, and we would have a amendment to the IPM program so that we would have this tool in place to help us, but we still don't have that.
So I can tell you, I feel your frustration because I was the one who pushed that forward with the city council. It is frustrating that it hasn't happened, but the city is starting to move forward with it and must move forward with it. And it's important because it will save us money when you're dealing with eucalyptus trees, which tend to grow back like hydra. But we can't do that until we have the CEQA. But I don't think that's a reason to just say, well, throw the whole baby out with the bathwater, because if we don't have this, we will end up like Mount Diablo. 2 years without a budget, with no budget for vegetation management, the stuff grows. We need to do this year in and year out. This allows us to do it, and we invite anyone to come to the meetings. They're among the best meetings that I've ever been to, and I've been to lots of meetings. the peanut gallery actually gets to participate. Please come. If you've got concerns, raise your issues, because
If you have ideas on
If you have
how to
ideas,
work
yeah.
the roadblocks. I mean, those of us who have served.
No parking on arterial roads. I can't believe how many people are now parking everywhere.
Well-
You can't get through.
And do you know what's happened on that? We put, the Citizens Advisory Council pushed the former fire marshal to authorize the firefighters on the trucks to give tickets for people parking. We pushed the fire marshal out into the street, driving around to talk to people. They put up a number of no parking signs on just below Florence Terrace, I think it is. And the neighbors pulled them down within a week. And that's what happens. People decide that that's too much of a limitation on their freedom. They should park where they want. And I mean, for my money, if you're in a fire truck, ram the sucker.
Yeah.
That's what
But-
they did. My
but-
brother-in-law's a
well,
fireman in
yeah,
Laguna
but-
Hills. and
but,
that truck
you know, we
runs
can't
away, they
really-
run over it.
Right, that can't be the policy.
So
No.
let's have David answer what's.
Yeah, I apologize to you folks and Ms. Piper for interrupting her. I'm awfully sorry. But another note on that. Under CEQA, and I'll finish CEQA up with this because we're spending too much time on CEQA, but when they filed the notice of determination, under the CEQA laws, it's the project. They define it as being the project. Now, the exhibit in your ballot measure is what they intend to do with this money. That is the actual project, and that is the key. That is what the notice of determination was filed on the project. So City Hall can say anything they want to, but the project is Exhibit A, I believe it is, or Exhibit 1. That is the actual project, and that's what they are claiming legally. They are exempt from an environmental report. That's simple. You can slice hairs this way or that way, but it's a simple code. The code is in the book. Run it up on the web, the actual government code. It's a simple thing to read. And that's what's exempt. So the city is exempt. Further on that, just real quickly, if the city did do an EIR after they claimed they were exempt from doing it, they would be, frivolously spending taxpayers' money, and they could be sued for that. You can't spend money to do something that you're not legally authorized to do, especially in light of the fact that they filed a notice legally that they aren't required to do it, and they're not going to do it to turn around and spend, a few $1,000s to do it, maybe a couple $100,000, is another liability. Can't be done.
So why don't we ask this question too, because this is another question I've gotten from Yahoo Group people, is what is up with the exempt properties? And if you could address that.
Okay, so the difference between the assessment and the community facilities district was that with the assessment district, all properties had to pay their, the fee. Under a community facilities district, and it's not the city's choice, this is the state law, if you don't pay property tax, you don't pay into it. But everybody is obligated to maintain their property and maintain defensible space. And the city is technically exempt from paying, but the city council, I believe last night, maybe Tuesday night, approved spending $150,000 a year to pay their fair share into this new district should it pass. And that's what they've been paying for the last 10 years. So, the school district is a charter school district. It doesn't pay property tax. But other, golf courses, if they pay a property tax, they're paying the tax on it. And it's the way the law, we have to follow with the law, the state law, that's the way it's set up. But the bottom line is we still will raise the same amount of money, which is what we've been using for 10 years, and it's basically what we need to do to get the job done. And I'm a very practical person. This is all about getting it done. And that's why I'm supporting it.
Yes, Sue's right. Assessment districts, the property, don't want to say the property is assessed, but like the old sewer district sidewalks back in the 20s, 30s when they started improving the streets, put a sewer in, you got assessed for the amount of footage of sewer that you had in front of your house. So the assessment district was the same way. Prop 218, extension of Prop 13, to sort of tighten up the rules and regulations on assessments. They included all public and nonprofit property. So under an assessment district, the old WPAD, everybody paid with the exception of cemeteries. Cemeteries, burial places for the dead are exempt generally from taxes. So everybody paid under the old system, absolutely everybody. School district, college district, everybody. Under this, only the residential property owners pay, private property, I should say that. Private properties are the only ones that pay.
Not just residential, though. Because there are,
Right, I corrected that. All private properties, it could be like when whoever owned the quarry back then, Gallagher and Burke, they paid. So we have very little corporate property or business property up here. But the problem there is like the 100-acre parcel pays for undeveloped $39. The big parcels downtown like Lucky's and Safeways and the one where the Bank of America is that has, I believe, 8 multi-million-dollar businesses on one fairly large parcel, they pay one parcel tax. They pay a $78 fee for that huge parcel with all those businesses. So parcel taxes, flat parcel taxes are a real boom for businesses that have, big parcels and big businesses. Again, like PG&E, they have a ton of property up here, and they will pay, because most of it's contiguous, $178 fee. So when you look around Montclair or other business properties, they pay that $178 charge that you and I pay for our little parcel or big parcel. The big $3 million house up in the hills, don't know, they might be up there, they pay that $178. The flat taxes are inherently unfair, but taxes are unfair, so.
Okay.
My concern is long range, thinking really long range, assuming that this will be renewed after another 10 years. When I read some material on the internet for the city website in April, it looked to me that private property owners could have their rates increased by the city council, but the same increases would not apply to corporations, business properties. That's not true?
no. This, for
That's
10
my
years,
question.
$78 for a single-family home, $39 for a, apartment or a condo. And there's no cost of living. If we want to raise it, we have to go back out for another vote.
And if there's a better way to do it, then let's start now
Yeah.
and figure it out and make it as fair as possible
Just a question.
10 years from now.
Yeah, because there's very little, if we want to have the ability to do this, we have to find a mechanism, and there was very little to choose from, and our choice was a community facilities district. So that's what we've gone with, because we didn't want this to stop. We want to be able to do it year in and year out.
If I were convinced that this really did some good, it was asked the other day, if this does Oakland so good, why doesn't San Leandro, Hayward, Berkeley, Albany, the rest of the hill section up here have, especially Orinda, you go over the hill to Orinda and Moraga, horrible as far as the vegetation, but they haven't enacted this type of tax. In fact, recently in Orinda, they voted the one down. The Moraga, Orinda Fire District voted theirs down because they see the futility in it. We are, like I said earlier, I hate to say we are stupid people, but we are. We want our cake and eat it too. We live in the hills, we love the woods, we love the vegetation, we love the park atmosphere, but we don't want to have fires. Unfortunately, you can't have both. We can't have our cake and eat it too. We can do what we can to try to make it safe, but when you stand down Lake Merritt and look up in the hills or break out an Oakland map, Oakland's wildland areas that we are using this tax to clear are less than 2% of the total vegetated area in these hills. That's without going over the hill into East Bay Regional Parks over into Orinda and Moraga. Just from the county line this way, it's only 2%. So it's trying to plug that dike with a tiny pin. It's really terribly futile. Now again, I'm not saying you should not try to do it, but to pay the tax to do that, I would rather see a tax be used for something more beneficial. Again, we need more water. We need escape routes. We need emergency escapes. And although the ballot measure says this is to clear emergency escape routes, can any one of you name an emergency escape route that we have? There are no designated escape routes. They're not marked. They simply don't exist. Someone told me the other day that trail on Shepherd Canyon, the old railroad right-of-way, was an escape route. I guess if you're on a bicycle or you're running down the hill, we have no emergency escape route. So what are we talking about? Fire breaks? It says it'll keep the fire breaks maintained and cleared. We have no fire breaks. East Bay Regional Parks has some fire breaks way back up in the hills, but we have no fire breaks.
David, 1 second here, we have a question here from Peggy.
So my question is, if this test should fail, will the fire department's inspections of defensible space around our homes continue or not?
Absolutely. That's under state law. They were in place. They've been in place forever under the Oakland Municipal Code, which is drafted under the state law. The fire inspections are under the authority of the Oakland Fire Department. They did individual home inspections, downtown business inspections. They've been doing fire inspections. I'm sure a fireman over there will attest to that. They've been doing fire inspections for years and years and years. That is an obligation and responsibility of them to do that.
It's not paid for by the wildfire prevention.
It's not, right, Sue's right, it's not, it comes out of the general fund. They've always done fire inspections. They've always cited people for unsafe properties. That will continue. There's no reason why it shouldn't continue.
Don't use the word always. It's 2 years.
I know it can be confusing because the Wildfire Prevention District does provide information, communication, education about it, but the actual inspections will continue. And please keep your defensible space. You're responsible for it 365 days a year, and it's very important.
Also, during the fire season, the patrols that they say are patrols, that is done by the fire department in combination with East Bay Regional Parks, I think some other organizations, Moraga and Orinda and CDF. Have I got that right? CDF, I think. That has always been done. We would be absolute fools, I say the fire department, any service that's provided to the citizenry of the city of Oakland, not to do that. There should be something done more sophisticated, infrared roving cameras or something in the hills. But for the fire district to say that those patrols are paid for under the fire district, again, it's incorrect. That always existed and it will continue to exist. The signs that are put up, high fire, the degrees that the danger exists at different times, that has been done for years and years and years. I'll add real quickly, the brush clearing on the sides of the roads, those of you who are old enough remember they used to do that way back when they used pesticides. They had that sprayer. So they've always done the brush clearing on the sides of the roads. So that won't change. That's an obligation of the city, and I would expect that would continue.
Okay, just real quick, we have about 2-3 minutes before we wrap up, so Barbara, if you just
On
wanna
the fire patrols, the district struggled with it. And when they started laying off and coming up with the plans to shut down fire stations on a rolling basis, and perhaps we didn't need to do this. All we pay for is overtime, if needed, on those high fire days, the high danger days, so that the normal scheduled fire guys can stay in the stations and be ready to respond. So if mandatory overtime is needed above and beyond what they're using to staff the things, it comes. It's been budgeted for about $25,000 a year out of the $1.7 million. 1 year we spent nothing. 1 year we spent $10,000 or $11,000. This past year we had 4 or 5 days and spent close to the $25,000. If it was improper, let us know and we'll sort it out.
I thought I just did. It's improper to take money out of that fire fund for the roving patrols.
I think it's specified in the previous thing.
It would make no difference specified or not. It's illegal. It's an illegal expenditure to use that money for roving patrols. That's an obligation of the fire department and the regular uniformed personnel.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Standing behind me. These contracts that you issued that people got cut the bushes down, are these prevailing wage contracts? Are they open to any contractor? without a prevailing wage requirement.
Well, you know that better. The contracts, the contractors have to meet the city's requirements. And that, yes, is prevailing wage.
It's not.
No, it is.
It is.
I just did a $5,000 trail repair and I had to deal with, there was, every contract the city signs is prevailing wage, period. Whether it's $5,000 or $5 million.
So we're paying about 2 or 3 times more than we should on prevailing wage.
Well, I'll just tell you, there are a lot of things that we're frustrated with the city, and I understand that. But that's not what this district does. We have to follow the city's rules. You don't like the city's rules, go call your city council member. But we do what we say we do. You can see that the money is spent on what we said it was spent on. And it's been done for the last 10 years, and we'd like to continue it for another 10 years so that the small fires don't become big fires. That's the bottom line for me.
Let me just add quickly to that. Some of the properties that are assessed under the old system that's currently in place until January, like the Oakland Public School District, didn't pay a dime. They're one of the larger assessed properties, along with Peralta College. Paid 1 year. The Oakland Public School District paid not a dime for the entire 10 years, with penalties and interest.
They paid it in September. They paid it.
Let me finish now. They didn't pay a dime for the entire 10 years, with interest and penalties that amounted to over $350,000. This council, our Oakland City Council, in closed session, let them skate for $105,000 with a promise to maybe pay the rest. And there's 2 problems here. Not only what they spend the money on, but collecting the money. If it's collectible under your taxes, as you and I know, they'll foreclose on your property to collect taxes. But those who normally don't pay taxes through the system, through the county, like the school districts and nonprofits, they're billed separately, and no one bothered to collect. I've raised this issue 1,000 times, public meetings, before the mayor, the last mayor, the chief. Everyone I could think of, Lamont Yule, when he came back temporarily, I talked to him about in the front steps of City Hall a few months back. To let the school district slide for 10 years, and they were a huge voter, to let them slide for those 10 years without any, and this is the problem. We don't know how many others, because the accounting isn't available. We don't know how many others, large taxpayers, institutions, were allowed to slide besides the Peralta College District and the school district. I believe there are more.
And with that, we will close this session. It sounds like most of you guys voted one way or the other, but just read your ballots. That's obviously the key. Even if it's tedious language, read the ballots.